She made one mistake, just one small, ordinary slip of taste, and everything she had spent years building began to crack. Perched high on Rosewood Hill, the Whitmore place looked like a statement carved in marble. Columns, clipped hedges, lights that threw latticed shadows across the drive. Eleanor Whitmore moved through it like a queen through a court. Her voice was cool enough to polish silver. Her smile was a measured thing, practiced to exactness. Staff learned to move as if their steps might disturb the architecture of her power. Conversations stopped when she entered the room. Laughter folded itself away. When Jasmine Carter arrived, she did not change the house's silhouette. She folded herself into a uniform, took in the house the way a reader reads for a plot, attentive to detail, quick to notice the seams. She was new, one more quiet person among many. Word had already preceded her, rumors of Eleanor's standards, stories whispered in the pantry about dismissed maids, about favors revoked for small failures. The air that clung to the servants' quarters tasted like caution. Jasmine listened more than she spoke. She learned names, not for flattery, but so she could place people in their proper context. She read the silver ledger, the list of wines, the guests' usual seating. She made a tiny spiral notebook of her own, allergies, preferences, how Mr. Whitmore liked his coffee before speeches. In the kitchen, she worked with a focus that was almost invisible, meticulous fingers, eyes that caught the slight warp in a tablecloth, the hairline scratch on a tray that others overlooked. Eleanor watched, she tested, first the impossible polish, a set of monogram's knives that had to gleam to a specified theatrical degree, then the memorized guest detail test, where a passing question about a visiting philanthropist's vintage wine became a public exam. Jasmine passed them all. She handed a guest the correct glass without theatrics, answered who sat where with the calm of someone reading a map, and arranged the silver so it reflected the chandeliers in clean, identical arcs. If this were a story about fireworks, Jasmine would have offered many, but she was quieter. She preferred the accumulation of small, undeniable truths. She arrived early, she left late, she made lists, and when mistakes happened, she owned them and moved on. Once she misread a seating card and corrected it before anyone noticed. The close call left a human tremor in her chest, but did not stop her work. If you love twist endings, hit like and stay with us. Eleanor's tests escalated into something colder. Subtle sabotage began to thread through the household. A dress hung where it couldn't be noticed until guests arrived. A tray misdelivered. A rumor murmured to Mr. Whitmore while he skimmed reports. Nothing overt, but enough to suggest incompetence. Eleanor's strategy was a slow leak.
She did not shout. She arranged circumstances where humiliation arrived as a natural consequence. Jasmine did not respond to cruelty with spectacle. She responded with procedure. When wine labels were intentionally shuffled, she took photographs of the original boxes and cross-referenced invoices. When a guest's shoe seemed to vanish at the last minute, she checked the maintenance log and found the shoe in a service closet. She had a note where she had seen it. Each time Eleanor nudged the house toward a spectacle, Jasmine left a tidy record that quietly contradicted the narrative Eleanor tried to write. Staff began to notice. The cooks watched the way Jasmine set a table no one else thought to set. A longtime housekeeper allowed herself once a smile when Jasmine remembered that Mrs. Langley's water must be room temperature, not chilled. Loyalty did not flip overnight, it threaded. People who had once looked away began to look toward Jasmine for a standard they could trust. There was a moment in the weeks before the gala that crystallized what Jasmine had become. A visiting guest, a woman known for nitpicking, mentioned an obscure vineyard and mispronounced the vintage. Jasmine corrected her with a lightness that disarmed the room rather than shamed the speaker. The guest laughed and thanked her. Compliments, like small plants, can rearrange the garden if they are planted often enough. Eleanor could not abide being dislodged without striking back. The charity gala was her last move. Tickets had been promised to the city's most visible patrons. Photographers would line the driveway. Eleanor envisioned a tableau, the Whitmore name, the speeches, the applause. She planned an accidental scandal, an indulgent trap designed to make a rival seem reckless and fragile under pressure. A plate would be garnished with shrimp for a guest who, as Eleanor had arranged through a whispered call to a catering liaison, carried a serious shellfish allergy. The horror of a public medical incident would do what gossip often does. It would reset the scales. People would retreat to the side that seems safer. Eleanor would reassert the lesson that power hurts those below it. Jasmine saw the anomaly in the catering manifest the evening before the gala. A notation didn't match the seating chart. A guest flagged as no seafood had been paired with the tray set for the fish course. She felt the old human flutter of doubt. What if she was misreading it? What if she made a mistake before 100 eyes? But she had the list, the invoices, the vendor confirmations. She called the head chef quietly and asked a single practical question. Who delivered the garnish for table 8? Manners held at the line between propriety and protection. Jasmine did what she could with the tools at hand.
She set a spare plate aside for the guest, swapped the garnish at the last second with a steady hand, and when the guest politely asked why, she cited the catering list and explained simply, "We double-check allergies tonight. It's company policy." The guest smiled, reassured. The plate crossed the table without incident. The moment felt fragile and enormous at once. The cameras captured laughter at a neighboring table. The violins rose. A woman at table 9 lifted her glass and praised the evening. A photographer angled for Eleanor's profile beneath a chandelier. But the guest who could have been led into danger raised her hand to thank Jasmine by name. A clear, unembellished thanks that landed differently than applause. It landed as acknowledgement. It was quiet, and it echoed. Eleanor's expression shifted. The diamond-hard aura that had made people step aside showed a hairline fracture. She arranged her exit with the same precision she had planned the evening, leaving before the after-dinner speeches, her jewelry humming as she moved through her crowd. No one screamed, no one pointed. She left, and the leave was its own language, an admission, if not a fault, then of a correction in status. The household felt it, a change in gravity. What followed was not theater. There was no shouted victory, no parade. Staff spoke in softer tones, in ways that had not been possible before. The housekeeper who had once frozen at Eleanor's glance brought Jasmine a small practical gift, a screwdriver that had been missing for months, because the gesture said without words, "Thank you." Mr. Whitmore returned from a business trip and asked distractedly who had managed the seating. He accepted the report and moved on. The husband's absence of drama was part of the architecture that had allowed Eleanor's control in the first place. Social whispers drifted through rosewood circles, a dinner where the hostess had slipped, an early exit, gossip that would eventually cool into story. Jasmine continued to do the work she had always done. She polished the silver until the sheets left clear reflections. She refilled water glasses and straightened chair legs. But the way people met her in passing changed. They offered small courtesies, a direct thank you, a promise to call about a forthcoming event. It was not the type of recognition that rewrites a life. It was the form of respect that restores daily dignity. Eleanor, for all her privilege, learned a quieter lesson. The power she wielded so efficiently could be undermined not by spectacle, but by a single unshowy competence, by someone who refused to be diminished. And